I've watched Rick and Morty, and while my position has always been that the show is overrated, I still found it to be entertaining enough. High on Life is a game designed by the show's creator, and as such, it features the same type of humor we've come to expect. Upon starting the game, I realized two things almost immediately. First, the game supported Ultrawide, but had no field of view slider. Luckily, Rose provided a tool which solves that. Thank you, Rose. Secondly, the game is blurry. It's honestly very disturbing. Luckily, some users in the Steam forums provided a fix which solves this. I don't get why developers still do this. You release a game without the FOV slider and make it a blurry mess without the option to fix it. I'm playing a PC game, so I should have all the settings in-game and not have to modify files if I want the game to look decent. Anyway, once that was taken care of, we could finally start High on Life and it would not look like a blurry zoomed in mess. We play as a teenager whose sex is supposed to be undetermined by the game, but it's pretty obvious from the family photos hanging on the wall as well as the game's cover art that the protagonist is clearly male. However, since the character is not defined, he's also a silent protagonist. Unfortunately, it gets worse. Everyone seems to keep referring to our character as they. This is of course some woke trash being shoveled down our throats again. You see, we are also occasionally being called the bounty hunter. So it would have been easily possible to replace every instance when people refer to us with that description, as many other games have done in the past. Don't get me wrong. It's still a shitty solution, but at least not as shitty as pandering to the woke mob. Giving our protagonist a proper voice and real personality remains the best option available. And speaking of personality, we find this alien gun right at the start of the game and it talks for both of us. And I say that both in terms of how much it blabbers and how often it actually responds in the protagonist's name when NPCs ask him a question, which was clearly not directed at the gun. This is particularly stupid because it makes our character into an extension of the guns. Yes, guns. We find multiple and they all have different personalities. They are the de facto protagonists and the one holding them is just a platform to which they attach themselves. As for how often they talk outside of key moments in the story, you can limit that, especially considering that most of the time they will simply repeat phrases such as notifying you when it's time to use their special shot. Yes, the guns have two fire modes, with the secondary being both a useful tool for traversing the environments of the semi-open world maps as well as a fun mode of attack. The problem with that is that the combat is very repetitive and boring. You will mostly fight the same enemy types in pretty much the same concentration. And even when a new enemy is introduced, which is super rarely, it's essentially just a reskin of the existing ones with the same types of attack patterns and behavior, for the most part. The maps are, as mentioned, semi-open. This means that while you don't have the complete freedom of an open world, you usually have multiple directions in which you can explore each segmented level. And explore you should, since the game has a bunch of hidden boxes which hold valuable money with which we can buy upgrades for our guns and suit. These upgrades are just stat improvements for the most part, but on occasion you can find weapon mods as well, which change the way they fire. This doesn't really improve them by much, but any change is welcome when the combat system is this boring. And while we are on the topic of exploration, the maps hold secrets, some of which are inaccessible at first. You are expected to progress through the story to such an extent that you can unlock these specific abilities necessary to reach these hidden spots. As for the story itself, it's not good, but truth be told, nobody came to play High on Life because he or she was hoping to find an amazing story. Honestly, I wasn't even expecting much in terms of gameplay either, so I wasn't too shocked when I found out that it was kinda boring. I came for the humor, so let's talk about it. This is an example of a location where you find several loot boxes who have become sentient. They have a home and a child. You are invited in a friendly manner and told that you are welcome to stay as long as you like. And while the boxes at first crack a few jokes about how they have loot inside of them and that you could just kill them and take it, they act like that's not what's gonna happen. And of course, things turn ugly pretty fast, since in order to open the boxes, you have to use your knife on them, which in turn kills them. Obviously, no matter who you murder first in order to get to their sweet loot, doesn't really matter. The remaining two will begin to scream and cry in horror. This type of joke is not new, but still a great example for the over-the-top type of humor you can expect from this game, and for the most part I loved it. Luckily, there are many similar jokes as well as lots of swearing. Obviously, this is not a child-friendly game, although it may look so at first glance due to the bright colors and cartoonish appearance. The gameplay loop essentially revolves around going to the hub world, activating a bounty, which is basically the next zone's boss, teleporting there and killing waves of enemies until you actually reach the bounty. The boss fights are a bit more interesting, but again, I cannot stress this enough. High on Life is not a very good game when it comes to its gameplay. This wouldn't be such a problem if it wasn't buggy as well. Most of the bugs aren't that big of a deal, but there are a few sections where you could genuinely soft lock. It actually happened to me once. I died after leaving a boss room, then was revived inside the room again and faced a door which usually opens after the boss has been dispatched, only now it had been closed. Unfortunately, in such a situation, you're stuck in there. There is no way out, and no matter how many times I reloaded the checkpoint, I was stuck in there. The only way out of this room for me was to download the cheat engine table, which could teleport me past that door, which is not good at all. So yeah, if you are unlucky, you could end up soft locked and face the option to either start the whole game again or having to use cheat engine to fix this issue. And again, I cannot stress this enough, this is bad, this should not be happening. Finally, I would like to talk about the game's creator, Justin Roiland. Apparently he beat up a member of his family 3 years ago, and this came out recently. Now people are suddenly talking about boycotting the game as well as his show. My personal stance is that domestic disputes should neither be discussed publicly nor should they be judged by people outside the family. We don't know any details, nor do we know the extent of the alleged physical altercation. At the end of the day, it's a personal issue, and I will neither involve myself nor judge anyone about something of this nature that happened over 3 years ago, and especially when I have next to no reliable information about it. So if you want to skip this game because you want to make some kind of personal statement, that's absolutely your right, and I won't judge you. I respect people's principles. For me, however, this was not a reason enough to boycott this game or any future work he may be involved with. Then again, I would be remiss if I did not say that this game is not even close to being worth the $50 it demands. If you are not in a hurry to play a mediocre game with the occasional good joke, then wait it out. I guarantee you the price will drop a lot and fast. Objectively, I would say that you should not pay more than half of that. So wait for a real price drop and then give it a shot if you want to. Not only will you save some money, but you are far more likely to get the game when it's less buggy and more stable. Yes, it did crash on me a few times as well. So should you play High on Life? Not at this price. It's a mediocre game no matter how you look at it, and while the humor was pretty entertaining at times, it's hard to justify the boring gameplay and story with the jokes alone. Not to mention that, as I've said, it's buggy and it even crashes. So my advice again, either skip this one entirely or wait for a massive price drop. Thank you for watching Game Filter. I hope this review was informative and I would love to see you on the next one. Until then, have a great day. This is Nino signing out.